Let's go Ravens! The NFL trade market is heating up in a serious way, and one of the biggest names floating around right now is none other than Max Crosby. And here's the part that should make every member of the flock lean forward a little bit. The Baltimore Ravens are officially keeping tabs on his availability. That's not speculation. That's coming straight from reporting mentioned in the file, and it changes the tone of this entire offseason. According to the article referenced from Albert Breyer, we should know soon which path the Raiders are taking, with multiple teams monitoring the situation, including the Ravens. That list also includes the Cowboys, Bears, Bills, Patriots, Eagles, and Rams. But let's focus on what matters to us. Baltimore being included in that group tells you this front office is at least evaluating what it would take to land a true elite pass rusher. And let's be honest, adding a player like Max Crosby would immediately elevate this defense to another level. We're not talking about a rotational piece. We're talking about a tone setter, someone who changes protection schemes, someone who demands double team snap after snap. Now here's where things get really interesting. Albert Breyer said he leans toward a trade happening, and possibly this week. That means this isn't some slow-burning rumor that drags into draft night. This could move fast. With the legal tampering period starting next Monday, teams are already maneuvering cap space. If something happens, it could happen quickly and quietly. And the way this was described, it wouldn't be loud. It wouldn't be messy. The Raiders reportedly don't want to publicly shop Crosby, and Crosby himself doesn't want it advertised, especially considering his bond with owner Mark Davis and how he views himself as a Raider. That means if something gets done, it'll likely be discreet. And if there's one thing we know about this Ravens front office, it's that when they make trades, they often come out of nowhere. Now let's talk compensation. The article made it clear that Las Vegas won't just give Crosby away. But here's the key, he's turning 29 in August. He has 7 NFL seasons under his belt. He's coming off 2 straight seasons that required surgery. Yes, he's known for elite conditioning, but those factors matter. He's not 24 years old finishing up a rookie deal like some of the other stars who commanded 2 first-round picks in previous trades. That context matters because it could bring the price down. And if the price comes down, that's when eyebrows go up in Baltimore. Because this team isn't rebuilding. This team is trying to win now. Which brings us to another major storyline from the file, the contract situation involving Lamar Jackson. Baltimore would like to finalize a contract extension with Lamar, who has 2 years left on his current deal at $53 million per season. He has $29 million of his 2026 salary guaranteed, but beyond that, no additional guarantees. His cap number is scheduled to balloon to $74.5 million this year and next year. However, the Ravens do have automatic conversion rights built into the contract. That means they can add void years, convert salary into signing bonuses, and reduce this year's cap number by as much as $38 million, and they don't need Lamar's permission to do it. But the preference would be a true extension rather than pushing more money into future void years. It's also important to remember Lamar doesn't use an agent. That has complicated negotiations in the past. So while both sides likely want something done, it's never simple. Still, Baltimore has options. They can create flexibility if they need to, especially if a move like Crosby becomes realistic. Now shift to another decision looming, Zay Flowers and his 5th-year option. According to reporting mentioned in the file, the Ravens plan to pick up the option on the 2023 first-round pick. That would put him in line to earn $27.29 million in 2027 after making $2.6 million this past season. That's a massive jump, but it reflects his production and trajectory. Meanwhile, Rashad Bateman is coming off a down year but is guaranteed $6.5 million this season. The Ravens appear inclined to give him another opportunity in the new offense being installed under coordinator Declan Doyle. That's significant. It suggests Baltimore believes internal improvement could still happen at wide receiver. On the other hand, contracts for DeAndre Hopkins and Tylan Wallace are set to void, leaving $3.74 million in dead cap space. Baltimore currently has about $20 million in top 51 cap space heading into the new year. Hopkins had expressed interest in returning but also wanted a larger role. That detail feels telling. Then there's Keaton Mitchell and the restricted free agent decision. Baltimore must decide whether to place a low tender, which costs around $2.52 million but provides no draft compensation if they decline to match an offer sheet, or a second-round tender at $5.767 million, which would secure draft compensation but comes at a higher cost. Historically, the Ravens have leaned toward lower tenders, and offer sheets for restricted free agents have become increasingly rare. And finally, the Ravens strengthened their infrastructure by hiring Dr. Nick Gill as Vice President of Health and Performance. The role will oversee strength and conditioning, medical, nutrition, and sports science efforts. The emphasis on integrated performance shows the organization's commitment to maximizing player health, something critical for a roster built to compete now. So when you step back and connect all of this, Max Crosby trade whispers, Lamar's contract flexibility, Zay Flowers option decision, wide receiver turnover, Keaton Mitchell's tender situation, you see a front office juggling win-now urgency with long-term cap management. And this is where everything connects, because if you're going to even consider making a move for someone like Max Crosby, You have to understand exactly where this roster stands right now and what kind of flexibility Baltimore truly has. We already talked about the cap mechanics around Lamar Jackson's deal. The ability to convert salary into signing bonus and create up to $38 million in space is massive. That's not a small adjustment. That's the kind of flexibility that allows you to entertain big conversations without completely tearing apart your future. But at the same time, the organization has made it clear they would prefer a clean extension rather than pushing money into void years that stack up later. So any aggressive move would likely be paired with some kind of broader financial strategy. Now think about this from a roster construction standpoint. The defense adding an elite pass rusher changes everything. It changes how offensive coordinators prepare. It changes how quickly quarterbacks have to make decisions. It elevates everyone else on the line because protections shift. And when you're a team trying to compete at the highest level, sometimes that one dominant piece is the difference between very good and championship caliber. But here's the balancing act. Baltimore also has key internal decisions to finalize. With Zay Flowers expected to have his fifth-year option picked up, that locks in a significant future commitment. That's not just about rewarding production, that's about projecting him as a long-term foundational piece. And based on what we've seen, he's earned that trajectory. The jump from $2.6 million to $27.29 million in 2027 shows how quickly wide receiver value escalates when performance meets draft pedigree. Then you look at Rashad Bateman, coming off a down year, yes, but guaranteed $6.5 million this season and reportedly getting another opportunity in the new offense under Declan Doyle. That suggests internal belief hasn't disappeared. It suggests the coaching staff thinks usage and scheme may unlock something more consistent. And if that's the case, the urgency to spend massive draft capital or cap space on another wide receiver decreases. Meanwhile, the departures of DeAndre Hopkins and Tylan Wallace becoming official free agents create clarity. Their contracts voiding adds $3.74 million in dead cap, but it also opens up roster spots and rep distribution. Hopkins wanting a bigger role signals that both sides may be ready for different directions. Wallace's situation feels more like a depth recalibration unless something unexpected happens later in free agency. Now let's circle back to Keaton Mitchell because this decision, while smaller in headline value, matters strategically. The Ravens historically lean toward the lower restricted free agent tender. It costs less, and offer sheets have become rare league-wide. The second-round tender at $5.767 million would virtually eliminate risk, but comes at a price that doesn't align with Baltimore's usual cautious cap management. The lower tender at around $2.52 million is more in character for this front office, even if it carries slight risk. And that brings us to a bigger philosophical question about this offseason. Are the Ravens protecting flexibility, or are they positioning for a strike? Because when you look at the hiring of Dr. Nick Gill as Vice President of Health and Performance, that's not a random move. That's an investment in long-term optimization, integrated strength, conditioning, medical, nutrition, sports science, that signals an organization tightening every competitive edge. Teams that believe they are close to something special make those types of hires. You don't restructure Lamar's deal options. You don't consider elite pass rushers. You don't reinforce performance departments. You don't evaluate fifth-year options for ascending receivers, unless you believe your window is open. And that's the heartbeat of this entire situation. The Ravens are not operating like a rebuilding team. They are operating like a team that understands timing. Timing of cap flexibility. Timing of roster development. Timing of competitive opportunity. If Max Crosby becomes realistically attainable at a price that reflects his age, recent surgeries, and contract structure, and not the historic 2 first-round benchmarks from years past, that conversation becomes serious. Because the context is different. He's not 24 on a rookie deal. He's an established veteran who wants to win, and the Raiders may be heading into a transition phase with a rookie quarterback and a roster still being reshaped. Would you want to wait through that? That's a fair question raised in the report. Would Baltimore be willing to accelerate their push? That's the other side. So now everything sits on the edge of timing. The legal tampering period is approaching. Cap maneuvers are already underway across the league. Decisions on tenders and